Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome once again to another Tanakh review, another Haftarah review. My name is Uziah Lewy. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation D.C.B, BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. I'm thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for all things and everything, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Giving glory to the Most High God for life and for all of the things that are desirable in our minds that he provides us and he gives us. And also thanking the Creator for the life of the leader, the spiritual leader of Beit D.C.B, my brother, Prince Yediel Ben Yissaskar, praying that the Most High God be with him, guide and protect him, keep him, and that the Creator of heaven and earth will continue to be with him and his family and his household. I thank the Creator, the Most High, for life once again, and I'm grateful for my life and the life of all of you who tune in on a weekly basis and think that what we have to say is important and even give us the ear to listen and take in this wisdom and this understanding that is being given by one of our teachers. So once again, I'm grateful to the Most High God for life, and I pray that the Creator be with you all. At this moment, I'm going to turn it over to Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah, who will be going over Haftarah Tsaw. And, Nasik is one of my mentors, one of my teachers, and I'm glad to have him do this. And he's been dedicated and diligent in doing this work and putting forth the understanding and the wisdom that the Most High God has blessed him with. And hopefully you'll get something out of this. And I pray that the Creator of heaven and earth be with you all. Hallelujah. At this moment, I'll turn it over to my teacher, one of my teachers, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. Baruch haba. Shalom, shalom. Early Shabbat shalom to you, Nasik.
Same shalom, and told everybody. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Son of the Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform on D.C.B platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, the host, Chief Uziah, to the princes, chief, rabbis, Maureen, Connie, brothers and sisters, I greet you all in the time of forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and an early Shabbat Shalom. And I like to say, Adonai Sabtati Takubi Agi Tiateaka, O Lord, open down my lips, and my mouth shall declare thy praise. First off, I will be talking about the Sidra Tsaw, but before I go there, I'd like to thank all the brothers, more especially from the brothers from D.C.B and those people that's out there from various congregations I've talked to. Most of y'all know who you are, for the support, spiritual support, and my personal dilemmas that I had to overcome, and it was, the Creator showed me favor in that. So I like to say, Baruch Hashem, that, and that may the Creator bless y'all just for your thoughts and, the presence and the support in every factor and every way you was able to, because things worked out very good for me in that area of my life. So I'd like to thank those that was out there and those know the ones I'm talking to. And also, I like to say, sometimes everybody go through it. Sometimes you might not see, other people may not see, some of the things you go through, whether leader, teacher, a regular member, stuff like that. But the prayers of the many is more sufficient, and knowing people is there to support you is more sufficient than your own prayers coming before the Creator. So, because everybody's not like Moshe. So, thank you very much. Now, I like to deal with this, the difference in the sidros. And when I talk about the sidra, the different portions of the book. So last week, we started Wa'ikra, which is the beginning of Leviticus. And it had an unusual opening, and he called. And I explained that last week. Now we have another unusual phase in this opening, in this particular chapter. And for those that follow the Sidra that I'm talking about, and a normal book could be the 6th chapter of Leviticus first verse, going to the 8th chapter and 36th verse, which I'm only going to speak on the first maybe 5 verses in this particular sidra. And the Haftarah I'll be dealing with, which is mainly what I'm supposed to try to focus on today, is Jeremiah the 7th chapter, 21st verse, through the 8th chapter, 3rd verse, and then skip over and read 2 verses from the chapter 9 of Jeremiah, which is verse 22 and 23. Now, one of the interesting things about this here is that those that read thoroughly the beginning of Leviticus, you find that it was talking a lot about offerings, sacrifice. Korbanot is the term they use in Hebrew. Now, the difference, first like this, they talk about the word korbanos, korban, which is translated in English as a sacrifice. And it's a poor translation of the actual word, korban, which mostly in the book you'll see sacrifice, offering. And sometimes you might see the word zabak, which is a sacrifice. But when we say a korban, when what was prescribed in the book, the early part of Leviticus, and as we continue to speak on in this particular week that just passed portion, that when you talk about a sacrifice, it gives a connotation of something that's lost. You gave it up, you got nothing out of it other than giving it up. And that's not what the korban is. Korban comes from the word kiruv, which means to bring close, nearness. It's almost like similar to a relative in Hebrew. The word for relative in Hebrew, same shorish, a relationship. And when we bring these different korbanos, which they translate as sacrifices, it's not we lose because we offer it up. We gain because it brings us closer to the Creator. So I just figured I'd just like to explain the difference when people actually say, I'm sacrificing something, as opposed to our connotation according to scriptures of what a korban is. Now, I like to also bring out another unique difference between what we just read earlier, because a lot of people tend to gloss over these particular early chapters of Leviticus because they're talking about all this offering up this here, offering up that. I don't see any point to it. We ain't doing that today, and I don't see a need for it. But when we look at the difference, and why would it be repeated? When we look at the difference between the earlier chapters and we get into the book of the 6th chapter here, which is today in the book of Leviticus, what we find here is this, that in the earlier chapters, it was more for public knowledge in the sense of what the public going to bring, the regular people. It starts off with a free will offering. So it starts off with the lowest offering you could bring, which is the free will offering. Whereas here, in this particular portion, it started off with the most highest offering that's brought, which is the ole, the burnt offering that's done twice a day, every single day. So now, why would it start off with the lowest offering in the first? And that's why, and for the people, because this is something that somebody might voluntarily give up when you talk about Leviticus, what you need to do to get close to your Creator. But here, now this law is really going to be focusing and centering around the priest. Hence the word Tsaw. Tsaw is a command. It's a strange opening. And I just want to read just how it's written in English. And it says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, command Aaron and his sons, saying. All right. Now, just in that opening verse, all right, and I haven't even finished the whole verse, but I mean the first 2 verses, command Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the law of the burnt offering. All right. When we look at that, we find that when the Creator says something to us, and it says, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto the children of Israel. We know if it's coming from God through his prophet, that it's a law. It's a command. The Wayomer, which is to say, that's a little easy, a little bit more intense. Why the bear and the Lord, Adonai, and the Lord spoke, that's more intense. But here, it don't use neither. It comes straight out and saying, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, command. So now, the difference between a command and Tsaw is that when you say something, give a command, you say something to an individual, okay. I do that when I feel like it. When you say speaking to them, that it's a necessity, that it's more of an urgent. But when you command something, that means you cannot delay it. And so a command is saying here that speaking to Aaron and his sons, that this is a command, something that you cannot delay. You can't postpone it. You can't say, well, I'm in the mood for it today and not in the mood for it tomorrow. And not only that, this is a command that's supposed to go on forever. And so you say, well, okay, and this is a generational command. And we usually don't have so much of a personal generational command. We know Adam had one command: don't eat from the tree of knowledge. That's a command. That wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't the Lord spoken to Adam saying, it was a command not to do it. So that shows you the urgency for the first man. So, and when you get a command from the Creator, it's not subject to change. I just like to also go a little bit further, and it says, the command is, it is that, this is the Lord of burnt offering, it is that which go upon, goeth up on this firewood upon the altar all night until the morning, and the fire of the altar shall be kept burning thereby. All right. Then when we look at that, it said all night. If it's supposed to be burnt all night, that means that you got to take care that the fire, and it's talking about, it said the fire on the altar should be kept burning thereby. All right, the flame. And one of the things when we look at it is that, and the priest shall put on his linen garments, and his linen breeches shall he put upon his flesh, and shall take up the ashes whereto the fire has consumed the burnt offering on the altar, and he shall put them besides the altar, and he shall put off his garments and put on other garments, and carry forth the ashes without the camp unto a clean place. All right, now, what we learn in the beginning of Leviticus, and what we learn in here, is not only what the priest physically is supposed to do, but it teaches us a moral lesson in this particular portion. It's a saying that says, blessed be the generations whose leaders are humble enough to say they made a mistake. That's one of the most highest criteria of a good leader, is that when he could say, I made a mistake, I was wrong, and I need to correct that. That is a blessed generation, or a blessed group of people that has leaders such as that. And I acted prematurely. I didn't think that out. I was wrong. Last portion, we read about the priest that had to say, I'm wrong. Next portion, I mean, later on in that same thing, you read about the congregation, all the leaders together. What's wrong? Then you read about the prince of the people. It's wrong. You know, so leaders address them being wrong first, and that they got to admit that they're wrong in order to come close to God. And bringing certain offerings was allowing them to repent and come closer to God, because it's a testimony that though I made this mistake, this is not where I want to stay. So that's one valuable lesson there. And then another thing I like to bring out is that the priest, everybody in different organizations, a lot of people don't mind doing an important job, a prestigious job. He dresses the, you know, the priest have, you know, all this beautiful garment on. This talking about the high priest, because he don't want to talk about the changes. He have all this beautiful garments on with the gold and all these jewels of stone, precious gems and stuff, and looking really royal. And yet, when he offer up the sacrifice, which is the highest and the most important offering of the day, the burnt offering, that same guy doing the most prestigious job, allowed to become the closest to the Creator, elevating animal soul and animal flesh on a more holier, higher level, reflecting the human animal side of their mentality or spirit. He himself, he couldn't designate anybody else to take out the ashes. Say, taking out ashes, that's beneath me. You mean tell me I got to work and do this for the nation and still clean up after myself? And he puts on linen garments to do that. We know linen is pretty much a bright color, but it shows that no matter what the job is, whether it's a great job or a little job, that you if it's for the benefit of your Creator, it is an important job. And that's what it teaches, that even a man such as the priest who represent all the nation and goes before the Creator for us and wear the best garments in the nation, that's considered holy garments. Nobody else, even if they had the more gold in their garments than the priest, theirs is never considered holy garments. And yet he had to put on and do manual menial tasks, as taking ashes outside. So that is shows a sign of humility, meekness. Moses was a great man, like I spoke on before, but the Creator didn't praise him for his ability to stand up for his people and fight, or talk to the Creator and stand up in defense of the people, willing to sacrifice and get himself taken out on behalf of his people. The Creator didn't praise him for that. The Creator praised him for being the meekest man in all the earth. And that's what a good leader got to be. Not denying your ability, but recognizing that your ability is a gift given from the Creator for you to be able to serve and enhance, this world. So now we go a little bit further in that, and that's what I'm going to speak on just a few more verses. All right. And the fourth verse it said, and he shall put off his garments and put on the other garments and carry forth the ashes without the camp unto a clean place. And the fire upon the altar shall be kept burning thereby. It shall not go out, and the priest shall kindle wood on it every morning, and he shall lay the burnt offering in order upon it. All right. And he shall make smoke thereon. Make smoke thereon, the fat of the peace offering. Fire shall be kept burning upon the altar continually and shall not go out. That's why I'm going to stop in this particular portion of Sidra, but I want to bring out a couple of things. I had the pleasure of listening to Rabbi Deborah Bowens from out of Philly, the spiritual leader there, and the spiritual leader Sherei Shemaim, Chief Prince Hezekiah, and I caught a little bit of Samar Zakar Devar on reference to the Sidra. All right, and everybody brought out some dynamic points, but I want to focus on a little bit what Rabbi Bowens had brought out, and not the, because I know she mentioned the word plagiarism too, so I'm not trying to plagiarize her Torah, but Torah, it'd be okay to talk about Torah if somebody else spoke about it in reference to that. And sometimes you might not even remember the names of the person that you got the quote from or a good message from. But I'm bring out this particular word here. I'm just going to do it in a little bit different fashion. All right. The word to use for the flame, Mokdah. All right. Now, Mokdah, as I spoke before, when Wayikra, that the aleph is a small letter, when I spoke in reference to that last week. When you're talking about Mokdah is a flame. All right. The little light, the flame. And the mem in Mokdah is written small. And that's Rabbi Deborah Bowens brought out that, anytime you see that, you should bring attention to investigation, look deeper. What's the correlation? What's the subliminal message that it's trying to bring out in reference to that? Now, we know all our letters has what they call a scriptive meaning. It has a numerical value in itself, and it has a particular script that's unique. So now, when we look at the mem here, and I said last week that you will find different letters, all the alphabet, the 22 letters, different places. You find some in Esther, those that read the Megillah, where you might find letters a different size, I think a pay or something like that. Sometimes you might find a noon in different areas. But all the alphabet throughout the whole Tanakh, you're gonna find letters in different sizes. That's unusual. It might be small, it might be small. I mean large. So when we look at this here particular mem, now mem itself, we know the numerical value is 40. And we will get back to it a little extensively, but when it says Mokdah, right? Now, when we talk about that flame, that it's supposed to burn and never burn out. And we know that the fire on the altar should never, it says the fire on the altar should never be extinguished. Then we know that they had the tabernacle set up, a year after they had left Egypt. And we know, a little short of a year, they set it up in the first month, after they left Egypt. A little short of a year. The dedication and everything like that, took some time for the 12 tribes, each on their particular day. But when the cloud got up and moved, we had to move with it. So they had to disassemble the tabernacle. They had to disassemble the tabernacle. And when they disassemble it, that means that brass altar that sits in the courtyard, outside the sanctuary itself, that had to be moved too. But it's covered with a wool cloth. So now, how that fire is transported, we don't see that how they transport the fire in our travels. Though we know when we get later on in the book of Deuteronomy, they talk about 48 different stops that we made, or something like 48 or 42 different places we stopped within that 40-year period. So that means that if we move and disassembled the tabernacle and reassembled, assemble it, what happened to that flame? We have a command to the priest, and this is a command that can't be changed, to the priest, that the fire should not go out, that flame. So according to different oral interpretations, which makes sense, and which was pretty much, you see other nations pretty much do something similar, is that they might make a copper bowl, a pot, something of a copper vessel, I would say. And they have that, and when they get ready to move, they take that flame with other wood and had that wood ignited with that flame that was on the altar. So that same flame that the Creator had brought down to consume the sacrifice in the very beginning of the when the tabernacle was having dedicated on that particular day, which will be coming in soon with the Shemini Atzeret, that very flame, that very fire, that fire there, they would take and ignite it on some other wood and have it in a brazen vessel, and they make sure that don't go out while they're transporting the brazen altar, the copper altar. All right, so that's how they were transported. So we know that the altar itself, the fire inside it was extinguished, but the fire itself was not extinguished completely. The fire was transported from the altar into some other wood inside another vessel, and then they would move out there till they get to the spot where they need to be. And then when they reestablish and set everything back in order, the same fire that would be in the copper basin, in the vessel that they had, they would take that and start up the fire again, and then add more wood to it. That's why the priest, even if they didn't move, had to make sure it was enough wood to keep it going all through the night. So I just want to bring that out. So now, another point I'd like to bring out is, what did it have to do with us as a people? And one of the things is this, is that when we study in the small mill, sometimes people say, I might not study that much. I might not, I don't have time to study. I got to work. Kids got to go to school. I need to get some rest. I might have to do some shopping. So they might say, I don't have time to do no in-depth study. So I might not do any kind of studying all week long, but simply because I'm just too tired. I'm just too tired to actually do it. And since I'm gonna do just a little bit of study and not no intense study, I'm not gonna study at all. What that means right then and there, that when we talk about study and getting involved, in study, it shows that you got to have that same excitement and zeal to study a little bit, and just a little bit, and it starts up the big fire and flame back on the altar. So when we feel that I don't feel like praying today, because now when you feel like you don't want to pray today, or I don't want to pray that long today, my spirit's not into it, so I just don't want to go before the Creator. That is the time you got to make sure that flame don't go out, because it says, when they use the word lo tebe, let me just make sure I get it right. I don't want to give it wrong. All right, yeah, lo tebe, which is that it should not be extinguished. You could transpose the word and say tebe lo, extinguish the no, extinguish the negative. That's what it is. The negative is, I'm getting too weak. I can't do it. And so you extinguish the negative, which seems something like an oxymoron, but you extinguish the negative by saying, that flame, before it go out, I'm gonna rekindle it. Most of us that came in this way of life at a older age, some of us wasn't born into it. We had that great excitement about study. And then all of a sudden, after a while, that excitement started to die down. So it must be rekindled. Hence the mem. Now I'd like to bring out another point about the mem that's used here. And also about this thing. I'll try to be brief. Matter of fact, I always say that, but I'm trying a little bit harder. Because just so much just in those 5 verses I read, that I could go on to, but I don't want to get to the Haftarah, is that when we look at the mem itself, it's only you have an open mem, and you got what they call a mem sophic, which is a final mem, which is a closed mem, written different. In the Hebrew language, for those that study and know the language and know the aleph bet in the language. Now, in the book of, I had to write that down so I don't forget the actual chapter and verse. And Nehemiah Nehemiah, 2nd chapter, the 13th verse, they have this word hain perusim, all right, which they breach the gates. Now, one of the things about the hain, that when a mem is closed, it's usually come at the beginning, at the end of a word. All right, but when the mem is open, it's at the beginning or the middle, but it's never at the end. Here, the mem will represent, when it's open mem, it represents a breach or exile. And yet, when it's a closed mem, it represents dominion, salvation, safety, security, so to speak, almost like a fence. All right, so we have right here in a picture, and Nehemiah, just for those that might not be familiar with what I'm saying, in Nehemiah, 2nd chapter, 13th verse, that hain is always written with a closed mem. Hay and mem. And with a closed mem, so mem sophic is at the end. But in that particular book, and only out of 24 books of the Torah, out of all 24 books, that is written with a open mem. Now we got just the opposite when we get to another book, the book of Isaiah, 9th chapter, 6th verse. All right, when he used the word, lambe, lemar to have dominion, the excessive dominion. All right, a greater dominion. All right, so we find there that now, after the Lamed in the book of Isaiah, you have what they call a closed mem. So hence, and it's talking about, the Tsaw, the Prince of Peace, and everything like that, and having dominion. So it's like a hope and salvation that's mentioned in the book of Isaiah, the 9th chapter, 6th verse. So there you have what they call a closed mem. Unusually to be written that way. And that's the only place out the 24 books that mem is written. So the mem has a lot of things to do with our way of life as well, too. So I'm just going to speak on the mem before I go into it, into the Haftarah. All right, when we look at the mem, the letter mem, not like Rabbi Bowen said yesterday, the gematria, the numerical value for it is 40. But you had the open and the closed mem, and I gave you examples of those where it's written different and unusual, and only one spot for each. But we have mem have a lot to do with because the chapter Tsaw, when it's not a leap year, it's usually read somewhere along Pesach, Kal Hamatzo. It's usually read during that particular time. but since we have a leap year, it's a little further off. And you got to say, well, why would it be something related to that? And also the word Tsaw itself, while I'm speaking on this, well, just in case I forget, that the word Tsaw, gematria, and the numerical value itself, Tzaddik being 90 and a wall being 60. So that's 96. So it's interesting to know that though the Sidra is called Tsaw, Tzaddik YAH, or some people say Tzaddik Vav, has the numerical value of 96. It's only 96 Pasukim verses in this whole Sidra of Tsaw before we get to Shemini. Only 96 verses. I don't know if anybody had that in mind when they wrote it. Moshe, he's accredited for writing this stuff, and it's all within this context, and it has an unusual opening with the word Tsaw. But let's get back to the mem. I figured I'd just share that in passing before I forget. But when we look at the mem, and I told you that this particular portion is always, when it's not a leap year, is read somewhere along CHOKMAH. That when we had the mem, who had a mem in their name, Moshe, went out to live. But also where we was coming from, Misraim. All right, so what Misraim begins with a mem and ends with a mem, which is strange. So when you say Misar, that's almost like narrow or borders, boundary. If you split Misraim in half, and you got the word Yam, so you can make two words out of Misraim, Misar and Yam. All right, narrow border, restriction, and Yam, which is a sea. When we came out of Misraim, then borders, we come out to the confines of Egypt, but we was not actually free until we went to the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, and came out in the sea, drowned the Egyptians. So now that's when we actually consider ourselves free from that slavery, because those guys was drowned by the waters, the sea, the Yam Suf. All right, now also we have another important figure. I don't want to leave the women's out because I start off talking about Rabbi Deborah Bowens, and she pretty much set the stage for me to change the way I would deal with this particular portion. Is that Miriam, her name begins with a mem and end with a mem, and we know that she is known as a prophetess. She's the first woman prophetess out of Israel that we know about. The first one. Now, what's so great about it, that when it came out the sea, Moses sang the song, true, but Miriam brought some instruments along and sang. So she took the singing and the song to a whole nother level than Moshe did. So, and she was responsible also for watching and setting up the stage for Moshe's mother, and to be able to nurse him and get paid for it. So it's a lot of things involved with that, with the mem. So and plus, Torah is like waters, living waters. And so when we drink from the fountain of living waters, the Torah itself, just like drinking from the Torah. We drink, we always endeavor ourselves to study Torah and learn, and not only study it, but apply it to ourselves. I must emphasize that. I don't want to go too much longer. I know I got a lot more I could say on that, but I'm just going to go straight into the book of Jeremiah a little bit, because, one more thing, I figure I'd be remiss if I didn't say this part though. I might not remember it next week. One of the things about, out of all the offerings it talks about, the only offering that it talks about later on, and then, that will stay. It's a thanks offering. It's the only offering that says that, he will offer. No other offering says he will offer. It's in the future tense that he will or shall offer. So that's only written with the Torah offering, the thanks offering itself. So we're gonna constantly be giving thanks to the Creator, one way or the other. And the thanks offering is based on, you say, when you offer a thanks offering. So according to rabbinic teachings, and they study and they bring out certain highlights about the word Chaim. And since we use the word Chaim, which Chaim means, living lives in that sense. So the first thing a person would be thankful for is if you're sick, from the word Kolei. That's the first letter of the word Chaim. All right. The second letter would be a Yod, which would be, from the word Yasur, which means one that suffered, God is going through a suffering or part of an imprisonment, a torture. Then, the next one is, when you talk about the other Yod, you're talking about the Yam, the sea, because why? Not only we came through the sea and was delivered, of it. So where God showed us the salvation that our pursuers say, we were saved like when we crossed the sea destroyed our pursuers. Then the final letter is Mem, the Mem we talk about. All right. And that is for Midbar, the desert. That's where we receive the law from the Creator. So here we live and breathe on those areas there. We live and breathe on those areas. So we're gonna go straight to the book of Jeremiah, and I'll try to be a little bit more expeditious in that particular portion. So you got it, Chief, or you got a sound problem?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, just wanted to, I turned down the wrong thing and then couldn't figure it
I
out.
hope I didn't have to say all that again, because people might be out.
No. You was good. It was on my end.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
The 21st verse. Now Jeremiah was a prophet, and what's unique about him is that he would seem like a lot of people would like to say the weeping prophet, the lament prophet. He's the only prophet that was actually only one major that we read about in the book, in the Tanakh, that was an eyewitness to the destruction of the temple, and he's the only one given the choice where he will go, and he's the really the only considered international prophet. Let's read it, 7:21.
We're in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 7, verse 21. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Thus saith Yehovah of hosts, the God of Yisrael, add your burnt offerings unto your sacrifices and eat ye flesh. For I spoke
now
not.
That sounds real rough in the beginning. Now, I like to bring out that this Haftarah, though we're going to be going from 7:21 to 8:3, and then we're going to go to 9. It's one of them. There's the only Haftarah that's actually less than 21 verses. But the reason they allowed this Haftarah, just for those that might study Haftarahs and stuff like that, is because it concludes its message within those 20, within less than 21 verses. The message completely concluded. So therefore, it's the only Haftarah that has less than 21. So that tells people that every Haftarah should at least have 21 verses. Some people that might read, let's say, okay, when we do some traditions, you got to do at least 21 verses, in a particular portion. All right. Well, you can pick up from this 22nd verse.
Verse 22. For I spoke not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings of sacrifices. But this thing,
right there. We just got through reading about sacrifices. All right. And yet, first of all, he's telling us to profane a sacrifice. All right. And this coming from the Creator. He said, oh, okay, do something what you're not supposed to do with this particular burnt offering. And what you're supposed to do with this burnt offering is burn it up completely. But they're telling you, y'all could go ahead and eat it up as far as the way we live in. And what's interesting, and when we look at the burnt offering and the sacrifice here, it says, and that's what a lot of commentators have problems with. How could Jeremiah say this? And we're talking about sacrifices already earlier. And we know people knew about sacrifices and offer up. I mean, the first time you read about it, Cain and Abel, but it was interesting. And that might be another thing to consider. Mincha is usually considered grain. But in the very beginning, when you first read about men offering up a sacrifice, Cain had his offering of grain, produce of the ground, and Abel had his of the flock. And they both was called a mincha offering. And we find that also used later on during Samuel's time. When he get ready to go ahead and say, I'm going to make a sacrifice, he called it a mincha offering. So this is something, since we're talking about sacrifice, I like to bring out. And also, why would Jeremiah say this when we got so many critics that say, oh man, see, that's why I don't believe in the Bible, because what I read over here and what Jeremiah say, that's a problem. Well, when we stood at Mount Sinai and we got them words from the Creator, the word, the word sacrifice, was not demanded there at all. And when they talk about the 10 Commandments, and the 10 Commandments, it said when God spoke all these words saying, you don't read anywhere in those 10 at Mount Sinai when God appeared for us, when we was at our holiest moment, that he mentioned the word sacrifice. So since he didn't mention the word sacrifice, not that we didn't do sacrifices before, but we elected to do certain things. Moses said, I don't know what we might have to bring up. But God didn't tell him, he said, just get them cleaned up, get them ready. I got to talk to him. So now, but the Creator know everything, the end of everything before it exists, because he created everything. Right. So therefore, I told you the word korban means to come close, get near. When you get too far, you got to get back. So the Creator allow us a way to get back to the Creator. If we mess up, how you come back? When that flame start to flicker down low, don't let it go out. Build it back up. But let's read about it. So Jeremiah coming hard on about a ritual. And plus, what's ironic, Jeremiah's a priest. I continue.
Verse 23, but this thing I command them, saying, hearken unto my voice, and I will be your God, and ye shall be my people, and walk ye in all the way that I command you, that it may be well with you. But they hearken not, nor incline their ear, but walked in their own counsels, even in the stubbornness of their evil heart, and went backward, not forward, even since the day that your fathers came forth out of the land of Egypt unto this day. And though I have sent unto you all my servants the prophets, sending them daily betimes and often. Yet they hearken not unto me, nor inclined their ear, but made their neck stiff. They did worse than their fathers. And
we took things on a serious, another level. And the Creator is pointing out and saying, no, it's about ritual. We read already about the obedience is better than sacrifice. And you read about in Hosea, about in the 6th chapter, about what God delighteth in is your obedience, and the way you treat not only others, but how you have respect for this great King. But one of the things I bring out when we talk about Genesis is why did God destroy the people of Noah's time for doing everything wrong? And yet when the children, the people came out after the flood and built the Tower of Babel, it was not destroyed. They just was scattered. And it created only promise not to destroy the whole earth with a flood. But the thing was that they were so united, they treated each other well. And that's why when we read the 133rd Psalm, you know, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. You know, at the very end, that's God didn't bless the mountain. He didn't bless the Aaron. He didn't bless the oil. He blessed the unity that existed in that psalm. Mm-hmm. So that shows the strength of unity in the psalm. All right. So we're going to pick it up just a moment right here. 27.
27. And thou shalt speak all these words unto them, but they will not hearken to thee. Thou shalt also call unto them, but they will not answer thee. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, this is the nation that have not hearkened to the voice of Yehudah their God, nor received correction. Faithfulness is perished, and is cut off from their mouth. Cut off thy hair, and cast it away, and take up a lamentation on the high hills. For Yehudah have rejected and forsaken the generation of his wrath. For the children of
of this wrath. I mean, everybody gonna go to jail. Everybody, I mean, well, when I say everybody, the majority gonna be slain. So we know 100% of everybody was not wicked, but it was too many of them to hold down the land. So everybody had to go, had to make the move. But 30th verse, we're going to talk about the desolation of Yehudah. All right, this should be enough. Keep going.
Verse 30. For the children of Yehudah have done that which is evil in my sight, saith Yehudah. They have set their detestable things in the house whereon my name is called to defile it. They have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I command not, neither came it into my mind. Therefore,
the idol that they worship, and the sons of plain, you know, Ben Hinnom, son of plain. You know, we know right then and there that what people used to do was sacrifice their children. And, you know, the way it's described by commentary, because you know, that's the only thing I know is about commentary in that reference, because I never seen it myself, is that it was an idol that had its hands out, and they light a fire on it. And then they'll take the child and toss it and lay it in the hands of the idol, and the child be burning up alive. And they play the drums so loud that you could barely, you know, so to drown out the crying and the plea and the agony of the child, desensitized, so to speak. That almost sounds like a little story, you know, but you know, I'm not gonna go too much into it. When Joseph was in the pit and the brother sat down to eat, so, and they hear him crying. You know, that kind of you know, insensitivity. At least Joseph wasn't dying in the pit right then, while they was considering murdering him. But here's a parent putting a child up to be destroyed and looking to say, well, I'm gonna get blessed more, right? So that is what you call a sacrifice, because they got nothing out of that, which is different from our connotation of a sacrifice. All right, let's pick it up from here.
Verse 32. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yehudah, that it shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter, for they shall bury in Tophet for lack of room. And the carcasses of this people shall be food for the fowls of the heaven, and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall frighten them away. Then will I cause to cease from the cities of Judah And from the streets of Jerusalem, the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of bridegroom and the voice of bride, for the land shall be desolate.
We're gonna matter of fact finish up the go into the next three
Chapter.
verses of this 8th chapter.
Chapter 8, verse 1. At that time, saith Yehovah, they shall bring out the bones of the kings. Slika. Chapter 8, verse 1. At that time, saith Yehovah, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, and the bones of his princes, and the bones of the priests, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem out of their graves. And they shall spread them before the sun, and the moon, and all the hosts of heaven, whom they have loved, and whom they have served, after whom they have walked, and whom they have sought, whom they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered nor be buried. They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth. And death shall be chosen rather than life by all the residue that remain of this evil family, that remain in all the places whither I have driven them, saith Yehovah of hosts. Hallelujah.
The last two verses. I wanted to say, now, when they taking out them graves, those are the ones that was actually, and that's, actually was worshiping all these strange idols and deities and stuff like that. Some people say, I ain't have an idol. I just worship the sun. I just worship the moon. I worship the constellations. My idols are up in my head. It ain't about God. So those kings, and it's that, and it's very specific. Only the ones that was into that idol worship. Now we know some of the wicked kings that talk about in Israel, and Judah. We know about some of them, and we know some of them was buried. But when the Babylonians sieged Jerusalem, they sieged them, and it took several months before they was able to actually break in and destroy the temple completely. And so when they sieged Jerusalem, it took a while. In the 10th month, that's when the beginning of the siege, break the wall. So some of those idol worshiper guys had tombs like real vaults. So they don't need them. I'm gonna be here for a while. The tomb is like a vault, whether it's laying flat in the ground, because I had my grandparent was buried in the ground, but it was a big, like, look like marble, whatever it is, slab, big long marble slab all the way around, rectangular, and it had a slab bottom, and it was in the ground about 6 feet. Yeah, it seemed like about 6 feet deep. I don't know how deep it was. So they lowered a coffin inside that, and then they had the truck back up and drop this heavy slab right on top of it. And it didn't take much dirt to cover that. Maybe about a foot or so, the most, of dirt on top of that. So, and that was just down south. So imagine some of these kings and priests that was worshiping everything like that. We know most people was put in the caves and stuff. Said, when you siege a city and it's right outside the city, and look at the locations that they're so close outside the city, where the Babylonians could actually make a siege there, which already sends another message about, is that holy or not holy? Is that clean or not clean? Look how close you are. So that should be something to say, oh, why would I want to be in a city and my city surrounded with tombstones? So that's something to consider, how low we might have went. So now, like most Haftarahs, you got to end on a good note. So I like to end on a good note in the 9th chapter, the 22nd verse.
Hallelujah. We're in Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 22. Thus saith Yehovah, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am Yehovah who exercise mercy, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith Yehovah. Hallelujah.
Whatever skills you have, it's a gift and a blessing from the Creator. That's what it does, and he can enhance it. But when you go to Haggai, the 2nd chapter, the 8th verse, you know, it says, mine is the silver and mine is the gold, and I give it to whomever I desire. Mm-hmm. So that means right then and there that your wisdom, the Creator help you get that.
Right.
You know, your might, your Creator help you get that.
Right.
David says, God taught my hand to war. He didn't claim that I come up with some skills. I'm natural. He didn't say anything like that. I'm a natural. I was born to do this. I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. From the womb to the tomb, this is what I do. You know, David didn't say anything like that. He recognized exactly where everything come from. So with that, I hope you got something out of what I said. And